In today's video, the best science-based diet for fat loss with Kait.
All by myself.
One of the really cool variables that they looked at was how fast they were consuming the foods that they were given.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Paul Ravella from ProPhysique.com, and I got one of my coaches here, Kait, who is getting her master's degree at University of South Florida in exercise science. How you doing, Kait?
I'm doing well. How are you, boss?
I'm fantastic. So we're going to talk today about the best science-based diet for fat loss based on an article from Mass. But first, I got to mention, tomorrow's video is going to be my top 10 Olympia predictions. Kait's been here while I edited it for like 2 hours.
Yeah, it took this man a long time.
Had to put a little work in that thing because it actually is very important, and it's going to be in a week from now. And then tonight at 9 p.m. I have a live feed, and that's Eastern time because I live in Florida and the world revolves around me, guys. So 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to do a live feed. I'm going to put the link here for Sean Carla's Instagram Q&A. So come and join us for that.
So in today's episode, we're going to talk about the best diet for fat loss as far as where you're getting your food sources from. So in the article in Mass, they in a metabolic ward took subjects and matched for energy densities across diets, but gave them different sources. So we're looking at things that are highly processed versus unprocessed. So you're going for things like Whole Foods versus Little Debbie's cakes or Pop-Tarts or things like that that we like to enjoy. And what they found when they looked at the differences was when they were allowed to eat ad libitum, so to fullness and satiety, the group that was consuming the processed foods, their intake was approximately 500 calories higher, and that resulted in excess fat gain, even though they were both served and had the ability to eat the same amount of food. So how do we interpret this? Well, when we're given things like Pop-Tarts or Little Debbie's cakes, but when you have those things, right, you want to overeat them. Whereas if you're eating things that are whole food, like baked chicken breast, you know, vegetables, if you will, things like that, you're gonna not have that response to want to continue to eat and overconsume. One of the really cool variables that they looked at was how fast they were consuming the foods that they were given. And the processed food diet actually ate significantly higher. And there's some really cool graphs in the article that I think Paul's gonna insert for you guys to look over here. To look at really what this means. And so when you look at, if you're trying to lose fat, satiety is going to be a huge factor. And even with clients that we work with, sometimes we'll see that their calories aren't really that low. They're not doing too much as far as energy output. So what is causing them to be so hungry? And when you break down the diet and ask them to do a diet recall, you'll see sometimes that they're just eating processed foods, that they're not making them at home, that they're eating things like protein bars, brownies, or other things that may not be the best thing as far as generating satiety and promoting fat loss by getting nutrients like fiber, high protein qualities, good sources of fat, and things like that.
Yeah, so, you know, as a coach that works within the flexible dieting realm, I think the term flexible dieting gets used for people to abuse foods.
A little bit more flexibly than we mean.
Yeah, so especially within the constructs of someone who's a physique athlete, we try to remove questionable foods. I did a video, maybe I think it was about 2 weeks ago, just on the idea of food labels and how inaccurate they can be.
Yes.
But when you get to whole foods, it's a lot more difficult to be inaccurate. But you're also dealing with foods that are going to produce much higher satiety.
Yes.
Food volume is going to be much higher. Micronutrients are going to be much higher. So it doesn't surprise me that if you just eat junk food, even if you have the same options for calories, you're going to overeat.
Right.
Because what I find when I have something like a Pop-Tart is that it's easier to digest. Now for someone like myself that eats 400 to 500 carbs a day, I often find it necessary to eat some junk food to hit my caloric goals. Because if I'm trying to hit protein, potatoes, broccoli, you know, some fruits and veggies, I find I get so full to the point where I can't really handle much more food volume. But for those of us that are just trying to lose weight, I think that this just speaks to the idea that our best options are those magic foods that get coveted so highly, where, you know, I preach that they're not magic, but there is certainly extra value in making sure you're making the best choice possible for your goals.
Right, and one thing that you hear about like promoted diets in the media is like whole food, paleo, or, you know, sometimes you'll talk about like vegans eating, you know, less calories overall if you look at research and like comparing normal diets versus a select variation. But if you really look into the content of that diet, it comes down to protein quality, fiber, things that keep you fuller longer, along with volume in those foods. And when you compare that, it's overall allowing you to consume less food because you're feeling satiety, you are fuller because you're eating that, and it's harder to break it down and use it or store it in that sense. So if you look at it from that standpoint, really just examine the diet and what it is that you're consuming and the quality of that food. And that this is not something that's saying that like processed foods are the demon. Like that's not the point of this message, or saying like you have to eat a whole food diet. It really just depends on your goals. But if you're in a place where you're feeling like you're dieting and you're struggling with satiety, and you find like if you look at it, you're eating a Pop-Tart every day or something, like maybe you can switch that out and get something that's more palatable or less palatable, but more going to provide you with more satiety throughout the day, to eliminate maybe overeating. One thing I see a lot of clients do is they'll save something sweet for at night, but sometimes that can trigger that endorphin response with where it's like it gives you a high and you want to just eat more.
Sure.
And so I'll have them kind of remove that, and it changes a lot of things as far as emotional ties or being spontaneous in a response to some type of dietary protocol that you're using.
Yeah, so overall what we're looking for here is a way to find balance within our diets, enjoy some foods, and educate our clients. But what I find is, at least personally for me, the leaner I get and the closer I get to competition, for me, my clients, Caitlin's one of my clients, we're gonna start eliminating foods that are processed because it's not the best option. Sometimes you have to look at what is the best possible decision you can make at this time. When it comes to physique goals and looking the best you can possibly look, that's generally going to be these foods that we consider to be whole food and just rich in micronutrients and fiber. And you know, when it comes to somebody like Natalie Matthews, who's a vegan client of mine, you know, I eat with her, I am so full for days because there's so much fiber in the diet. And so I find it's a struggle for me to hit my calorie totals. But when you're trying to restrict calories, that can be an advantage.
Yes, absolutely. I remember there was a point in prep where I actually went vegan, just to make sure that I mean, for me, one of the things I don't struggle with is getting in protein. However, like if you look at a vegan diet, it's very high. It's higher in carbs and fats and fiber. So all of those things just combined can provide more satiety over time, which can be beneficial.
Yeah, so the best science-based diet, the reason we call it that is because there's a little bit of research here that actually shows that people in a metabolic ward were overeating when they were eating processed foods, and they were actually staying on plan when they were eating foods that were whole foods. So when it comes to using science to look at dieting, I think it's still kind of common sense. You know a good food from a bad food.
Right.
We do believe in tracking because there is value in being flexible. Being too rigid can often lead to going off the deep end. However, when it comes to just consistency over time towards your goals, I think we'll both agree that a whole food diet is going to get you better results than a junk food diet. All right, guys, I think that's going to be it for us today. If you're interested in mass, I put a link below in the subscription box. I'm also going to put a link to Caitlin's YouTube channel. She's got a great channel as well over here on the YouTubes, and I'll put that first. So go subscribe to Caitlin's channel and support her as she finishes her master's degree.
Come nerd out with me.
All right, guys. Talk to you tomorrow.